Well, it's good to see all of you for joining me here on the first session of the Winter Stories. This is from the Episcopal Church in Navajo Land, and it's part of the Hozho Beauty Way, blessing that we have been doing now for, this is like our second year maybe, or third year. We started during the pandemic. It was a way for us to continue with sharing our stories, especially during the winter time. So we just wanted to continue this as a continuing awareness and a continuing education for both the Episcopal Church in Navajo Land and then to our friends who are all around us. So we appreciate all of you for being here with me on this first session. The session that I felt that we needed to continue with was sharing about 4 sacred mountains, and then how we live into the 4 sacred directions and in the Dene way of thought and thinking. So this was just a really great timing for this as well, because this month is Native American month and Heritage Month, and it's an honor to be sharing our stories in such a way and inviting all the communities to learn from Indigenous peoples, their spirituality, culture, and tradition. So today, I just want to say thank you for joining us on this first session. She Yaha Cornelia Eaton Yenshye Ashihe Nashle Ashlishne Bashichin Nakeda ne dashanaled asche dashache egate out yaha ashan nishle. I just introduced myself. I'm Reverend Canon Cornelia Eaton, and I serve here in the Episcopal Church in Navajo Land. I serve as Canon to the Ordinary and also Program Director for the Hozho Beauty Way Center, Wellness Center. And so I introduced myself as my clans. I'm Salt Clan, which is my mom's clan. My dad's clan are the Mud Clan people. My paternal grandfather's clan are the Mexican people, and that my maternal grandfather's clan are the Red Streak people. So sometimes I have to really think about maternal grandfather, paternal grandfather. So it gives me some time for me to just really reflect on making sure that my clans are in the right order. So it's really important. So that's how I am me. And I'm very grateful that all of you are here to join me from all 4 directions, actually, from the East Coast to the South, from the West Coast and to the North. So for being with me. Within the Navajo Land Area Mission, so I just want to say thank you all to my relatives here in the 4 Sacred Mountains for joining as well. So I see many of you on the little squares. So it's Najona Hehat. First of all, I want to begin with a little prose poem that I wanted to share with you. And the poem is like a prayer, and it's also a remembrance. And this is the way the Dene, when we have our conversations together in our language, it's very poetic. I mean, it just comes out in a very flowing, beautiful words. And so when I write, most of the time, it's just I write the way I am speaking in Dene. So this is the beginning of our session. Long life may I live in harmony was at beginning of time. In time memorial, was held within medicine buckskin bundles. in the palm of Creator, created for good, positive life, as a sacred source to wholeness through creation songs and prayers. Paths of the sacredness designed in sand paintings like colorful rainbows. Holy highlighted the earth in hues of white, turquoise, yellow, and black. Long life may I live ceremonies took place in a hogan made of earth, the home of my paternal grandmother, where the home was created of mud and cedar, where we heard countless chantings, songs of poetic voices from deep-rooted past. I listened to the poetic words of Hatral singings. As I drifted in and out of sleep, I tried eagerly to stay awake from the all-night singings, for the all-night singings, to be awake for what ritual would happen next. I tried each time to keep my young eyelids open and from closing. However, my paternal grandmother and elder aunts brought fluffy sheepskins and soft Pendleton shawls to wrap the grandchildren in. The sheepskin and blankets smell like wool and smoke, which travel among many songs and dances, and they made me very comfortable. My elders arranged these soft white sheepskins and colorful designed blankets on the earth to lay my body upon while their tender, loving hands caressed my hair. It was my grandmother and aunt's soft, protective touch, their motherly love and care that quickly put me to sleep. Meanwhile, deep, vibrant chanting echoed into the darkness like the sounds of soothing mountains, streams in a beautiful way. Like a traditional rug weaver, when she is creating a rug from yarn, her thoughts created songs and prayers. Her stories of hope and dreams go into every strand of the creation of a woven rug. It is also similar to a weaver who also weaves yucca strands into a ceremonial biduwe basket. The soul of the creator's vision goes into the weaving, and mostly important, it is thought of healing and wholeness for the one who will use the rug for remembering. Our two traditions should be interwoven. Here is a presentation I will offer in this way. Thank you for joining me for the first session of the Beauty Way of the teachings of the directions of the four sacred mountains. This morning, I will share on the Eastern Doorway Mountain, Cisnageni, White Shell Mountain, where the morning light comes from. I want to begin with a share screen, and if I can remember how to do this. Technology. All right, let's see here. Okay, I think you might be able to see this PowerPoint. Okay, So what I want to do here is to take you on a journey, and the journey is walking in the spirituality of Hozho, the Beauty Way. And so the way Hozho, we understand Hozho is peace, balance, living in wholeness and harmony that brings us into a place of healing. And so Hozho is parallel to Jesus's shalom. So they go together and they go hand in hand. And so it's a beautiful way to really embody both way of the divine. And so this is the way that that I was taught as I was growing up. So and a lot of the stories in our traditional way is varies, it's different. So there's many different ways of interpretation and many different stories. And it doesn't mean that they're separate from each other. It means that they come together in a very holy way. So I'm trying to get this, the main, okay, I think it's oh, sorry about this. All right, well, let's see here. The 4 sacred mountains. Here is the 4 sacred mountains. It's kind of blurry, but I think you're able to see it. But the 4 sacred mountains is where the Deneh Bikea, where we live. And so this is a place where the White Shell Mountain is where I'm going to be talking about. And the 4 sacred mountains, the 4 aspects of it is it teaches us of how we care for our mental, our emotional, and our physical. So this is how we are able to continue to practice our spirituality and living into this oneness of how the divine is helping us to understand our way of life. And so the 4 direction is very important to our culture and our tradition. And so they each have a sacred mountain, and the sacred mountain is Cisnagini, which is the first mountain that is to the east. And this mountain is Mount Blanca and near Alamosa, Colorado. And then we have Sontzith, which is in Mount Taylor near Grants, Arizona, or Grants, New Mexico. And then we have Doko'oslid, which is near Flagstaff, Arizona. And then we have the Northern Sacred Mountain, which is here in nearby where I live by Durango, Colorado. And that is the Benetsaw Big Sheep Mountain. And actually the Benetsaw yesterday was, it was snowing yesterday morning here. And it got a lot of snow after the clouds had cleared away. And you can see it very beautifully from my home. And it's just adorned with such beautiful white wool. So I'm very grateful for that. The next slide is what we call the Beauty Way slide. And I am wishing that I knew how to enlarge this. Give me a few moments to see if I'm able to do that.
Cornelia, I think if you move your mouse down to where the slider is at the bottom of your screen, if you see it.
Here?
Yeah, and move it over to a little bit to the left at the lower end, and there's a little button that says, move to the button to the right, to the right, to the right. There's three buttons to the right, and look for slideshow. One more.
All right, there. Okay.
That might be what you want. Is that good?
Yeah, that's good. Hey, great. Okay. Thanks. All right. Thank you. So the Deneh Beauty Way ceremonial basket, sacred formation. This Beauty Way basket is designed also to help us to remember our spiritual life and to remember how we walk in harmony and in beauty way. But the important thing about this ceremonial basket is that right in the center, you'll see like a weaving, it begins. And just as you look right in the center where that whirl is, that's emergence. That's remembering to tell us for us to remember that that's how ceremony happens, because each of us is ceremony, each of us is a spirituality, each of us is a very sacred being. And so this sacredness is always being weaved into a new way of becoming. So that centerpiece is that center emergence is the birthing. It's also known as the umbilical button. And so if you think about it, how when we talk about the eastern doorway coming in from here, I'll use my arrow. This is the eastern doorway here of the ceremony. And this is where the morning light comes from. And the morning light is to the east. It's this dawn, it's this radiance that we experienced this morning, and how beautiful it comes to us all the time. And it's daily, it never ends, it's continuous. So that comes into our birthing place of how we become a new way of becoming a person, and also how we become a new person to the other, to our surroundings. So here, this wedding basket, they also call it the Beauty Way basket. It's a coming of age basket. So it's always has a very positive and good name, nature to it. And so because there's nothing but goodness and sacredness and holiness in the remembrance of this sacred wedding basket, ceremonial basket. And so inside this basket reminds us that we are within the 4 sacred directions, the 4 sacred mountains. Some of these come with 4 and like for a 4-star in the middle, and that represents the 4 sacred mountains. And some come with 6, and because the other 2 are the little mountains, which is also very sacred, but they're like the in the biblical sense, the minor, like the minor prophets. They're like the minor mountains. So, and these 2 minor mountains are very sacred and important, because one of them is Joel-E and the other one is Zitlaodithli. And those 2 have 2 sacred stories. They have a birthing stories that happens there at each of these. And that's where we talk about changing woman, who is the mother to how we were created and into being. And because of changing woman and her sacredness, she also births twin warriors. So these are the sacredness of how we remember that. And then these black clouds, or these black areas here, is the clouds or the mist or the rain or the snow that we even received, and those dark clouds that come in. And because that's a movement that's happening, that's sacred, that's reminding us to be aware that something sacred is ready to happen. And we don't know what that is, but it's because of our awareness. We know that it's either going to be rain, mist, snow, clouds. Whereas yesterday we received snow here within the 4 sacred mountains. And so those are ways that we prepare ourselves, that we get ready. And that's what our winter stories are all about, is we get ready for these sacred teachings, the way it was handed down to us. And so these sacred teachings come down from our grandparents. Like for me, earlier when I started, I shared the story about how I experienced being in ceremony at a very young age and what that felt like. It felt very motherly. It felt very sacred and safe. And that, but also anticipation, because in my story, I read about how I tried to keep myself awake during the sacred ceremony, and because I wanted to know what was going to happen next, But at that time, I realized today, sometimes we're not meant to know what was to happen in a certain time or a certain time or place, because perhaps maybe, well, personally, this is what I feel, that we're not ready, and so God helps us, the divine helps us to get ready for that growth and for that ceremony. So, and that's what this black clouds remind us. So this is all internal. I mean, some of these we're able to see and visualize. And here, this red area is the rainbow. And the rainbow is the Hozho, the beauty way. It reminds us that beauty is all around us with the many different colors that the divine blesses us with. So that's a very sacred way. So we talk about walking the rainbow way. And then on the outside of the rainbow is perhaps we could look at as the spiritual. So the inside would be the physical, and then outside would be the spiritual. Things that we're not able to see, but we know that they're there, perhaps. So this would, since that this week we're in the Christian tradition of the Episcopal Church, we're remembering the saints and the communion of saints. So this outer part may be remembered and thought of in such a way. These are the holy people, the sacred holiness that continue to bring us gifts and are with us. So it could be like our ancestors and those who continue to guide us and are with us, and that we're never alone. And so this is what the outer side of the rainbow represents. And then of course the white area is eternal. It's forever. It doesn't ever end. So this sacredness that we have within us doesn't ever end. It continues to swirl, if you will, like the sacred image that we have here. So when I talk about the ceremony, this is the physical. This is what we can see. This is what we can touch. This is what we can feel, our awareness. And so this is Cisnagini, Mount Blanca, and it's adorned with white shells. Can you see the white shells? And it shines, and it's really beautiful. And what the beauty about this photo is that it looks very, very peaceful in Hozho and beauty way. And all the plants and things that are growing, and the juniper brushes and the cedar, they are all in harmony. They know how to be with one another. And so this is what our Earth Mother teaches us and helps us to want us to be aware of how to live in this way of life, of Hozho. And so, and that is gift, take time to get out and walk in nature and experience the beauty of what Mother Earth has to give us, and that she is very forgiving and she's very loving, and she helps us know ways to heal that is good for us. And so from that, we take the sacred medicines from her. But oftentimes when we're taking things from her, we got to give something back. In our traditional way, in Navajo way, what we give back is corn pollen. And we say, sage, if you're picking sage, or if you're picking some cedar, you offer corn pollen. And that's to acknowledge them in their existence. And then we give the corn pollen away to the earth, so that it continues to sustain us and feed us. And so these are part of the elements that we consider to be very sacred for the Dene. So in the morning, when we get up, those of us who are early risers, I'm pretty sure there are many of you in here, you get to see the sunrise, right after a blessing way, a beauty way ceremony. As soon as you go out the Hogan, this is what we see. This is what I mean by that fine line, that fine glow, that orange, red, you could see some rainbow in it, and there are many colors. this is not a very clear picture, but I'm glad it's not a very clear picture because sometimes I think that the picture we just take is just meant to be the way it's supposed to be, because there's something sacred in it that we're supposed to capture. And sometimes I think that when we try to capture that most sacred, that perfect image, it's not the image, I think, oftentimes that remind us that might not be the place at the moment. But this one was very blurry, and it just had some sort of feel to it. And I'm glad that it's this way. I'm glad that it's an imperfect photo, and I appreciate that. And this sacred time, at this dawn time, we acknowledge the sacred. We acknowledge the air, the fire, the water, the earth, all living things. And in my relationship with Jesus, and as a priest and as a traditionalist, I believe that Jesus has cleansed our air, fire, water, and earth, and that we are air, fire, water, and earth. So that us and Jesus are relatives, and we're related to each other in a very, very divine and sacred way. So to the Dene, this is a very spiritual and physical part of our life. It's that relationship that just really brings us close to the sacred and to the holy. And we remember that we're not separated from each other, that we're always intertwined, just like the Beauty Way basket that I showed you. There's always an intertwining happening in that ceremony. And that as we are ceremony together, we're intertwined like that. And they remind us of how to fashion our life, how to live in such a way with respect and Hozho. And that is how, our spiritual life is practiced. So when we say our spiritual life, it's different for many, but it doesn't, separate us. It's just a different way of us having a relationship with the divine that is very sacred to us. So, and that's embodying sunrise. Another thing that I wanted to bring about too is, how do we embody sunrise, but we also embody ritual. So when we go out and offer corn pollen in the early morning at dawn, we are embodying a sacredness, and the sacredness embodies us. So it's a both and. So here, as embodying ritual, we're embodying faith. Ritual is life-giving, and what we do and how we do ritual and spirituality matters. So in this photo, this is a photo of my daughter at her coming of age ceremony, and she's weaving together corn stalks for her coming of age cake. And the elders are helping her weave the corn stalks together for her cake that is going to bake in the womb of Mother Earth. And so here she's being instructed of how to do that. And she is embodying at this moment in photo. I mean, I was totally present there with her, but the sacredness of embodying this moment is very beautiful, because people are just surrounded and participating in this very sacred part of her life, and that she's considered very, very sacred and holy at this time. And in the early morning hours, she would run to the east, wake up early in the morning. She ran to the east, but everybody that ran behind her were not able to, they weren't allowed to pass her. because she was the one that was being honored and was seen as very sacred. So when the people ran behind her, they knew that. And so there was an honor and respect for that. And so when she turned around, the people then turned around behind her. And I can imagine all the ancestors running behind her and bringing her back into the Hogan, into the eastern doorway. And then all the community are gathered around her. And then, of course, here the cornmeal is done. It was mixed in a big old buckets. And here all the elders are around her. And as I said earlier about the pouring the cake into the mother's womb, here the ground is dug, and it's fire was placed into that pit, and we have a firekeeper, and the firekeeper kept the fire going all night and all morning for this for that pit to be very, very hot. And so when the foil was laid in there, and then the corn stalks that my daughter weaved with the elders, they laid it into the ground. And then of course the community also helped stir the cornmeal, and then all the cornmeal was poured into this ground, and then it was covered with the foil over it, and then with some more foil, and then canvas, and then with dirt afterwards. And while this baked all day and all night, we had ceremony, we had songs and prayers, singings. So it was a ritual that everybody embodied together, knowing that this was long life, may I live in beauty. And that's the essence. Those two are the essence of this sacred ceremony that is happening. Sa'anarai is the first part of it. Hozho is the second part of it. So there's always a two side of everything of our spiritual life. There's the protection side, and there's a beauty way side. And there's a male side, there's a female side. There's just like I was talking about, the twin warriors, there's one warrior and there's two warriors, or another warrior. So there's twins. Alket na ash, they would say. So the ones that they follow each other, and just like the sun and the moon, or the sun and the earth. I mean, the sun and the earth, yes. Johanna e don't Hassan egit ashto. Sorry, I just got talking in Navajo. The sun and the moon, I mean the sun and the earth, Johanna e and Nahastan, they're two, and they follow each other. You know, they're oneness together, and they're covenant together. So then that's a two also. So then there's the rain and snow, and so there's two, light and day. So there's, if you can get the picture of all that. And I realized too that in the gospel it's similar. You have night and day when the God created the creation at the very beginning of time. God was always making these things, and there were twos, to opposites, to balance each other, and that brings harmony. And so when we live into this way of harmony way, we remember that there's always the two sides of the two divine things that balances our spiritual life. And so that's the way of understanding our spiritual path and our understanding. And so what my daughter is doing here is that in that same way, honoring the Johanae, the sun, and then Nahastan, the mother, the earth, and then the womb being a part of Mother Earth and her womb and her birthing. So this is basically what's happening here, is a birthing that's happening. If you remember in the stories of the gospel, that God birthed all these stars, and that it's continuous. The birthing is always happening. And so this is, if you think about this, this is birthing happening. It's like, it's just becoming present to us, and we could see. And the joy, I mean, right now, the joy of how I feel right now about sharing this photo of this memory helps me live back into that time, helps me to be a part of my daughter's life in this way. And today I could say, yeah, gosh, I am so very happy that this is what we were able to do for her, and that all the ancestors were here and there with us and still continue to be present with us. So here my daughter is blessing the cornmeal before it is covered, and she's using the ceremonial basket that you see in her hand, and then she's covered with the Pendleton blanket, because she was never to be apart from her Pendleton blanket. Even if it was on a hot day, she had to wear her blanket with her and take it wherever she went. She was never to be without her blanket. I remember when she would be walking out, ready to walk out, the elders would say, "Nebethle," your blanket. So they would wrap her with her blanket, and she would go outside and to be present with the nature outside, and before she went back into the whole ceremonial Hogan. But here, afterwards, it's covered and it bakes all night long. The singing happens throughout the night, and then the morning comes. Here's a photo of my ancestral land here in this area. And this is a coming home for many of us when we go back to our sacred homes. Many of us have to go off to separate areas of our homes and to be away from our own homeland for maybe for work or for school or for things that we're doing in our lives. But oftentimes when we're called back to our sacred home, we know where to go home to, where our identity is, where our umbilical button was created and became and had its being. So here is a photo of two traditional Hogan. One of them was my grandmother, and the other was my great-great-grandmother's. And so this is a remembering that I know where I come from. I know where I was raised, and then I share this story along with to my children, to my daughter, and then so it goes on down the generations. And so this is home for me, and it's a belonging, and it's holy, and it's reverence, and it's embodying. Again, here I am embodying land, earth, home, mesa, clouds, sky, and knowing that she's not alone, that she's being embraced by a beautiful sacredness. Here, divine grace, the Creator also shows us what we love to do, and Creator shows us those things in our lives. All of us in our own lives have something sacred that we have, that we know that we enjoy doing, and we embody that. How do we embody that? And that's grace, and that's gift. And these are gifts. And how do we take care of them? How do we take care of our gifts? And so in the Dene, through the Eastern doorway and in the teachings of the mountains, of the sacred mountains, sheep is very important to the Dene people. It's their spiritual sustenance, it's their prayer, it's their songs, and it helps them to learn how to live in Hozho and harmony and to be in relationship. And so when we're offering sheep, we offer it in a way that it helps heal. It helps our energy. It helps us to come back to ourselves. And so this is the birthing again, and then the lamb and the sheep. And so this is a very beautiful way of embodying what divine grace looks like. Each of these sheep have their own personalities. And that it's really funny and interesting because when herding sheep, some like to wander off, and some are interestingly like kind of look that way to the ones who are kind of wandering off, and the others will look and wonder where are they going, and so just sitting there with them and to see what they're going to do. Usually one will always start walking the other way towards them, and then the rest will begin to go. But eventually at some point, they can only go so far. So I've sort of, in my own experience, had to make my round away in a different way to bring them back into where it would be safe for them. And a lot of times I found that I always thought crows were just a nuisance and they just wanted to just hang around but recently I realized that sometimes the crows helped me find the sheep when I wasn't able to find them, when I was pretty much disoriented out in the land because I was not paying attention. And so I'm standing there in the middle of the land looking all directions, trying to figure out which way they've gone. I'm not a very good at tracking, like looking for fresh tracks. Our former sheep herder used to be very good at that, but for me it was different. I looked up to the sky, and when I saw a crow, I had a sense and awareness, thinking that, oh, okay, I think pretty much that's probably where they might be. So I would pick up my bag and start walking towards that direction. And sure enough, down and over a hill, the sheep are in that area. So I've learned to appreciate crows, and very grateful for their hospitality. And then of course there's embodying storm. Our spiritual growth deepens through storms. We go through times of reverence, suffering, but out of all that, there's always hope that we come back into a way of trusting the divine, that the divine helps us through these places, that helps us to become a new way of creation and a new way of being. So this is, I think storm is one of those beautiful and sacred things. I mean, this photo shows me that it feels haunting in a way, but also very, very strong, and just has such a feeling of maybe even some fear in that, but good fear. There's such thing as good fear, because out of that we begin to have reverence. During the storm, sometimes there would be lightning, and I just remember my grandparents used to say, you can't be running around when it's thundering. You gotta sit down, just sit still and listen and be respectful to what's going on. So, and I remember those times, and I still practice that today, when there is a lightning and a strong storm. it's a time to just help us to remember to sit down and just be quiet. It's good for us. And then, of course, Bodding Sunset. This feels like a corn pollen sunset, another time to offer our corn pollen and to give thanks for the day. And this is one of the most sacred places as well, because it brings us together as a family. And it reminds us that we are born of love and made of love. So this is very beautiful in Hozho. Here's a little poem. It's a prayer. It says, Jesus was, is, now, and forever in the sacredness of story. Jesus, our unceasing prayer. Jesus, our heartbeat. Jesus, our healing. Jesus, our beauty. Jesus, our joy. In Jesus, our brother, in you, we are whole again. In beauty, it is finished. And this is our Beauty Way, Hozho Blessing Way prayer. And so I would like to offer this for you as you walk in Hozho from here, that I hope that you are whole and know that you are sacred and that you are love, and that you walk in the beauty way. As I walk, the universe is walking with me. In beauty, it walks before me. In beauty, it walks behind me. In beauty, it walks below me. In beauty, it walks above me. Beauty is on every side. As I walk with beauty. And I just want to say thank you for letting me share. And I hope this is something that will be inspiring for you and continue to help you to grow in your faith and the way the Holy is inviting you into relationship.